this year's event. Please welcome to the stage, John Murdy and Chris Williams.
How you doing? Well, thank you first and foremost. Thank you all of you for joining us, not only at Fan Preview Night, but at this little behind the scenes panel we're going to do to tell you a little bit of what went into creating Halloween Horror Nights 2019. I'm John Murdy, I'm Creative Director, Executive Producer of HHN.
And I'm Chris Williams, I'm Art Director of HHN, and thank you so much for coming out and checking this out. We really appreciate this tonight.
So what we thought we'd do, and by the way, we brought some friends. I don't know if you've heard. Yeah? Do you guys know who's going to join us out here tonight? First, Chris and I are going to take you through a little bit about how we create HHN. We're going to use examples from the mazes we're doing this year. Have you guys gotten out to the park and seen some mazes? I've seen two. We've been doing a lot of press tonight. But after that, we're going to bring out our friends Slash, Eli Roth, Greg Nicotero. And we're going to have a little chat about working together in the past. So let's start things off. This is the lineup for this year's event, obviously. House of a Thousand Corpses. Holidays in Hell. The Walking Dead. Jordan Peele's Us. And The Curse of Pandora's Box. But wait, there's more. Because this year we're doing more mazes than ever before. We're doing 10 mazes. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Stranger Things. Creep Show. Universal Monsters Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. That's right. And last but not least, Ghostbusters.
Hey, bro.
Yeah.
You got a favorite?
You know, I never have a favorite. They're like all of our children. We love them all equally. What we're going to do first is take you through the maze design process, and to do that, I'm going to use an example from The Curse of Pandora's Box, and we're going to talk real quick about concept design. Because this was an original maze, it started with research on the internet. This was actually Chris's idea. Chris came up with the idea of Pandora's Box. Have you guys gone through it?
Woo!
Did you like it?
Yeah!
Oh, right on.
What we thought we'd do is we take the story of Pandora and combine it with Greek mythology and bring in some of the monsters and creatures from Greek mythology. So the first thing I did, Chris had this idea about this giant box that would magically open. And we didn't even know how we were going to do that. And then you'd walk inside it. So we thought the setting for that should be a curiosity shop, like you would find in Victorian London.
So in the idea of the box, have you ever heard of a Dybbuk box? Yeah. So a Dybbuk box is, I guess, basically in Jewish mythology, like a box that has an evil spirit in it, and if you open that box, it'll unleash. But in a sense, what I was kind of thinking about is how can we translate that to this? And I thought, well, what would be cool is that if a box can open and you enter into it and enter into its world.
So I did a bunch of visual research. These are all images that I pulled when we were conceptually designing this maze. And then I gave it to Chris, and he did. You can tell us what you did there.
This is, over here on this side, this is kind of my chicken scratch drawing that I did, I think, probably in one of my production management meetings. Sorry, team. But it's really just a rough coming up with idea in respect to the box. Actually, you can look and see that there's a logo on the top, but you can't see my name at the bottom. It's on a memo pad.
Yeah, there's a Universal logo on the top.
Yeah, so it's on a memo pad actually that I just kind of sketched this out with the box and her in a skeletal figure with all these corpse hands reaching up and to her, and really trying to make it look, you know, even though it's just just a chicken scratch sketch, and that's what I really call it, or a napkin rendering, but that just really helps spur to I can give it to a designer and we can push that even further. And then on the other side, that's one of my working ground plans. So That's what
And these
we kinda-
change like a lot,
They
like
change a
multiple,
lot.
multiple times. And then once we get past that, we get into the drawing package, which is the formal drawing package. And the example we're going to use for that is Stranger Things. And this is your ground plan, I
Yeah,
believe.
this is a ground plan that's generated by my head art director, Brandy Creason. And so when I do a working ground plan, what you had saw before on the previous slide, that I would hand that to her, and then she would tighten things up, generate this, and you can even see, I think in the top middle image area, you know, a down view of our mind flayer up there too. So, you know, we take this and then turn it over to our architect, who turns into a CAD drawing.
And then the next step in the process is what's called the Scenic elevations. And for this, we're going to use House of a Thousand Corpses, a little place called Captain Spaulding's Museum of what? Monsters and Madmen. So this is your original elevation, right?
Yeah, and that was done by Troy Zimmerman, who really puts a lot of illustrative quality into our stuff, and that's what we're really looking for. Even within here, there's...
And Troy started
yeah.
here as a character in
Yeah.
our thing maze, and we found out that he had this whole background in design. So, and he still loves to scare. So, if you're going through us, and I don't want to give away the scares, you might be scared by Troy. And then next is the character design. I'm going to use Holidays in Hell as an example. These are just two of the characters that we designed for this maze, the Nightmare Nurse, and then I noticed if you take Santa Claus and rearrange the letters, it spells Satan Claus. So that was the inspiration for that character. These are all hand-drawn. And in addition to that, we have an artist who does fine art for us as well. And if you go through Holidays in Hell in the nursery, there's some amazing pieces of artwork.
Yeah, we're just trying to make some visual language in there. You can see up here with our nursery rhymes that we have, essentially.
Little Miss Muffet that sat on the tuffet, and the cow that jumped over the moon. And I don't know if you can see that, but all of the cuts of meat are labeled on the cow.
Yes.
And in addition to that, the inspiration for this maze was vintage postcards. And we have all these postcards that set up the different scenes you go through. So again, this was done by our artist, Lucas
Yes.
Colshaw.
Yeah.
And he did custom vintage postcards for every scene in the maze. And we even have to create fake products. So the fireworks stand for the 4th of July scene, everything in it is
Yep.
fireworks brands that we made up. There really isn't a fireworks company called the Mauler. And then we get into costume design and production. The example we're going to use is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. On the right, well, it'll be, let's see, my left, your right, is a swatch, right? And that's the first thing the costume designers show you.
Yeah, and we're just really trying to emulate exactly what it is in the film, and you know, we can really look at it and see that they use some metallics, and we weren't sure if it was metallic paints or not, but you can see our swatch, and that's what we're moving forward with. So, you know, we're quilting, we're doing specific paints and such to really emulate exactly what we're seeing in the film. So.
And then, you know, sometimes we get lucky. With Jordan Peele's
Yeah.
Us, one of the first conversations we had with everybody at Monkey Paws, they said, you know, we have a lot of jumpsuits. We have a lot of red jumpsuits, because if you've seen the film, and again, I don't want to spoil it, there's a scene where there's a whole lot of them. And I said, well, how many do you have? And they said, we have like 80. And I said, we'll take them. So what I'm telling you is every person in that maze that's jumping out at you that's tethered, that's from the film, straight out of the film. And no, you can't have it. And then we get in props and dressing, and the example is Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. This maze involved this scene. You know, the maze ended last year. Did you guys like Universal Monsters last year? I'm so glad you liked it. That's my favorite thing to work on is the classic monsters. That's my lifelong passion. We ended the maze last year with Frankenstein's monster saying, "What? We belong dead," pulling the switch, blowing the lab up. So the idea for this maze is we would go back to the lab, but it's ruined. And poor Dr. Frankenstein did not make it out. So that meant our prop team had to create all this stuff. And this is a dynamo.
Yeah, and this is the dynamo, and this was from, oh my gosh,
So Van Helsing?
I think so, actually,
Yeah.
production of, so we hung on to
I
that
know there's
for-
gravestones. This is a little Easter egg for you. If you go through Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, there's a cemetery scene. Right as you go in, Van Helsing. They're all props from the original movie Van Helsing that we've had for years. And this was a maze where it really worked to include them. after they made, one of the things our props and dressing crew is they have to deal with all of these bodies, and in this case, create a burned body. And then this was another Chris idea. I had the idea that the bride would be incomplete, like Dr. Frankenstein was rushing to try to finish it, so she's not completely attached together, and then Chris figured out how to do this. This is a magic illusion, basically.
Oh yeah. It's our typical in the box illusion, basically what we call a bear trap. Basically.
Yeah, this was originally done for the reverse bear trap years ago for Saw, but the performer's body is hidden underneath. You're only really seeing her head, the upper part of her body and her arms. The twist this year is we figured, well, she had no legs, so there's no way the bride would have made it out of the, of the castle once Frankenstein pulled the switch, so she would be burned. So she is burned to a crisp, so our prop crew had to make lots of burned body parts for the bride. And then we get into makeup production. The example is going to be Pandora's box. This was our idea of what Pandora should look like.
Yeah, really trying to make it look really scary in a sense, and a lot of detail within that. And that was actually sculpted by Jordy Shell, actually. So he was a well-known sculptor in the industry.
And then special effects. This year we have so many special effects. Starting with Stranger Things, we had to create the demo dog. So this is a foam pull of the demo dog right after it came out of the mold. There's a lot of them, by the way, in this maze. And of course, the season 3 creature, the big bad, because this maze is based on season 2, but at the very end there's a little bit of season 3 as a bit of a tease, and you run into the giant head of the big bad. So this was done by our makeup team, Chris, and that is?
Yeah, McGee Effects.
And McGee Effects, so we work with on all of the creature creation and all of the makeup. When you think about it, they're making up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every night, but they work with us every year to bring that to life. And then there's a movie called Ghostbusters, and for that, with Ray Slimer. So that's our sculpt, Patrick McGee's sculpt for Slimer.
Yeah, and you can see the one on, I guess your left, that we're trying to do it how the film was doing it. So Slimer with his actual arms out, and we're gonna do black art as he's UV and black out his legs. So it looks pretty well.
And also the terror dog. So this guy had to be sculpted life-size. It's a puppeted figure being controlled by somebody behind the set. We give them a camera feed and a monitor so they can see all you guys, but you can't see that. So they can time their scares accordingly. They can activate their own audio. They can activate their own lighting effects. They can manipulate the creature, make its mouth move. So a lot of what we do is basically practical effects. I grew up in the era of practical effects. I know you did too, with the great makeup artists like Stan Winston and Rick Baker. So everything we do gets translated back to the world of practical effects. And then, last but not least, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. There's a character in that movie called Clownzilla. And that's the original sculpt for Clownzilla's giant head.
And that was through McGee Effects as well. And that essentially, that's a little different. We usually sculpt with clay, but this is different. This is foam and then fiberglass hard coated in a sense. And then we hung it, so, yeah.
And then here's the final product.
Yeah.
And that's just a little behind the scenes peek at how we create Halloween Horror Nights.